Militarism is the belief or desire of a government or people that a country should maintain a strong military capability and be prepared to use it aggressively to defend or promote national interests. It may also imply the glorification of the ideals of a professional military class and the predominance of the armed forces in the administration or policy of the state. Militarism has been a significant element of the imperialist or expansionist ideologies of several nations throughout history. Prominent examples include the Ancient Assyrian Empire, the Greek city-state of Sparta, the Roman Empire, the Aztec nation, the Kingdom of Prussia, the Habsburg-Lorraine Monarchies, the British Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Empire of Japan, the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, the Italian Empire during the reign of Benito Mussolini, Nazi Germany, Israel and the United States of America. After World War II, militarism appeared in many of the post-colonial nations of Asia and Africa. By nation. North Korea Zaongun, often transliterated as Songun, is North Korea's military first policy, which prioritizes the Korean People's Army in the affairs of state and allocates national resources to the army first. Military first as a principle guides political and economic life in North Korea, with military first politics dominating the political system, a line of military first economic construction acting as an economic system, and military first ideology serving as the guiding ideology. Songun elevates the Korean People's Army within North Korea as an organization and as a state function, granting it the primary position in the North Korean government and society. The principle guides domestic policy and international interactions. It provides the framework of the government, designating the military as the supreme repository of power. The North Korean government grants the Korean People's Army the highest priority in the economy and in resource allocation, and positions it as the model for society to emulate. Songun is also the ideological concept behind a shift in policy since 1994 which emphasized the people's military over all other aspects of state and society. Russia Germany The roots of German militarism can be found in 19th-century Prussia and the subsequent unification of Germany under Prussian leadership. After Napoleon conquered Prussia in 1806, one of the conditions of peace was that Prussia should reduce its army to no more than 42,000 men. In order that the country should not again be so easily conquered, the King of Prussia enrolled the permitted number of men for 1 year, then dismissed that group, and enrolled another of the same size, and so on. Thus, in the course of 10 years, he was able to gather an army of 420,000 men who had at least 1 year of military training. The officers of the army were drawn almost entirely from among the land-owning nobility. The result was that there was gradually built up a large class of professional officers on the one hand, and a much larger class, the rank and file of the army, on the other. These enlisted men had become conditioned to obey implicitly all the commands of the officers, creating a class-based culture of deference. This system led to several consequences. Since the officer class also furnished most of the officials for the civil administration of the country, the interests of the army came to be considered as identical to the interests of the country as a whole. A second result was that the governing class desired to continue a system which gave them so much power over the common people, contributing to the continuing influence of the junker noble classes. Militarism in Germany continued after World War I and the fall of the German monarchy. During the period of the Weimar Republic, the Kapp Putsch, an attempted coup d'état against the Republican government, was launched by disaffected members of the armed forces. After this event, some of the more radical militarists and nationalists were subsumed into the NSDAP, while more moderate elements of militarism declined. The Third Reich was a strongly militarist state. After its fall in 1945, militarism in German culture was dramatically reduced as a backlash against the Nazi period. The Federal Republic of Germany today maintains a large, modern military and has one of the highest defense budgets in the world, although the defense budget accounts for less than 1.5% of Germany's GDP and is lower than, for example, that of France or Great Britain. Contemporary opinions vary, but Germans predominantly oppose unilateral military actions and are suspicious of all claims advocating them. Under discussion. Japan In parallel with 20th-century German militarism, Japanese militarism began with a series of events by which the military gained prominence in dictating Japan's affairs. This was evident in 15th-century Japan's Sengoku period or Age of Warring States, where powerful samurai warlords or shogun played a significant role in Japanese politics. Japan's militarism is deeply rooted in the ancient samurai tradition, centuries before Japan's modernization. Even though a militarist philosophy was intrinsic to the shogunates, a nationalist style of militarism developed after the Meiji Restoration, which restored the emperor to power and began the Empire of Japan. It is exemplified by the 1882 imperial rescript to soldiers and sailors, which called for all members of the armed forces to have an absolute personal loyalty to the emperor. In the 20th century, two factors contributed both to the power of the military and chaos within its ranks. One was the cabinet law, which required the Imperial Japanese Army and Imperial Japanese Navy to nominate servant that could be formed. This essentially gave the military veto power over the formation of any cabinet in the ostensibly parliamentary country. Another factor was gekkokuja, or institutionalized disobedience by junior officers. It was not uncommon for radical junior officers to press their goals, to the extent of assassinating their seniors. In 1936, this phenomenon resulted in the February 26 incident, in which junior officers attempted a coup d'état and killed leading members of the Japanese government. The rebellion enraged Emperor Hirohito and he ordered its suppression, which was successfully carried out by loyal members of the military. In the 1930s, the Great Depression wrecked Japan's economy and gave radical elements within the Japanese military the chance to realize their ambitions of conquering all of Asia. In 1931, the Kwintang Army staged the Mukden Incident, which sparked the invasion of Manchuria and its transformation into the Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo. 6 years later, the Marco Polo Bridge incident outside Peking sparked the Second Sino-Japanese War. Japanese troops streamed into China, conquering Peking, Shanghai, and the national capital of Nanking. The last conquest was followed by the Nanking Massacre. In 1940, Japan entered into an alliance with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, two similarly militaristic states in Europe, and advanced out of China and into Southeast Asia. This brought about the intervention of the United States, which embargoed all petroleum to Japan. The embargo eventually precipitated the attack on Pearl Harbor and the entry of the U.S. into World War II. In 1945, Japan surrendered to the United States, beginning the occupation of Japan and the purging of all militarist influences from Japanese society and politics. In 1947, the new Constitution of Japan supplanted the Meiji Constitution as the fundamental law of the country, replacing the rule of the emperor with parliamentary government. With this event, the Empire of Japan officially came to an end and the modern state of Japan was founded. Philippines. In the pre-colonial era, the Filipino people had their own forces, divided between the islands which each had its own ruler. They were called the Sandigs, the Call and the Tanods. They also served as the police and watchers on the land, coastlines and seas. In 1521, the Viceroy King of Mactan Lapu-Lapu of Cebu, organized the first recorded military action against the Spanish colonizers, in the Battle of Mactan. In the 19th century during the Philippine Revolution, Andrew Copyright S. Bonifacio founded the Katipunan, a revolutionary organization against Spain at the Cry of Pagdaloin. Some notable battles were the Siege of Baler, the Battle of Imus, Battle of Kawit, Battle of Nueva Ecija, the victorious Battle of Alapan and the famous twin battles of Binacan and Alayacan. During independence, the President-General Emilio Aguinaldo established the Magdalo, a faction separate from Katipunan, and he declared the revolutionary government in the constitution of the First Philippine Republic. And during the Filipino-American War, the General Antonio Luna as a high-ranking general, he ordered a conscription to all citizens, a mandatory form of national services for the increase the density and the manpower of the Philippine Army. During World War II, the Philippines was one of the participants. As a member of Allied forces, the Philippines with the U.S. forces fought the Imperial Japanese Army. The notable battles is the victorious Battle of Manila, which also called the Liberation. During the 1970s the President Ferdinand Marcos declared PD 1081 or martial law, which also made the Philippines a garrison state. By the Philippine Constabulary and Integrated National Police, the high school or secondary and college education have a compulsory curriculum concerning the military, and nationalism, which is the citizens' military training, and reserve officers' training corps. But in 1986, when the Constitution changed, this form of national service training program became non-compulsory but still part of the basic education. United States equals. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, political and military leaders reformed the U.S. federal government to establish a stronger central government than had ever previously existed for the purpose of enabling the nation to pursue an imperial policy in the Pacific and in the Caribbean, and economic militarism to support the development of the new industrial economy. This reform was the result of a conflict between neo-Hamiltonian Republicans and Jeffersonian-Jacksonian Democrats over the proper administration of the state and direction of its foreign policy. The conflict pitted proponents of professionalism, based on business management principles, against proponents favoring more local control in the hands of laymen and political appointees. After the end of the American Civil War, the National Army fell into disrepair. Reforms based on various European states including Imperial Britain, Imperial Germany, and Switzerland were made so that it would become responsive to control from the central government, prepared for future conflicts, and develop refined command and support structures. It led to the development of professional military thinkers and cadre. During this time the intellectual ideas of social Darwinism propelled the development of an American overseas expansion in the Pacific and Caribbean. This required modifications for a more efficient central government due to the added administration requirements. The enlargement of the U.S. Army for the Spanish-Euro-American War was considered essential to the occupation and control of the new territories acquired from Spain in its defeat. The previous limit by legislation of 24,000 men was expanded to 60,000 regulars in the new Army Bill on February 2, 1901. With allowance at that time for expansion to 80,000 regulars by presidential discretion at times of national emergency. Again, U.S. forces were enlarged immensely for World War I. Officers such as George S. Patton were permanent captains at the start of the war and received temporary promotions to colonel. Between the First and Second World Wars, the U.S. Marine Corps engaged in questionable activities in the Banana Wars in Latin America. Retired Major General Smedley Butler, at the time of his death the most decorated Marine, spoke strongly against a trend to what he considered trends toward fascism and militarism. The Latin American expeditions ended with Franklin D. Roosevelt's Good Neighbor policy of 1934. Butler briefed Congress on what he described as a business plot for a military coup, for which he had been suggested as leader. The matter was partially corroborated, but the real threat has been disputed. After World War II, there were major cutbacks, such that units responding early in the Korean War, under United Nations authority were unprepared, resulting in catastrophic performance. It should be noted that when Harry S. Truman fired Douglas MacArthur, the tradition of civilian control held and MacArthur left without any hint of military coup. Serious permanent buildups were a result of the Cold War. Dwight D. Eisenhower, a retired top military commander elected as a civilian president, warned of the development of a military-industrial complex, more complex than many traditional ideas of militarism. In the Cold War, there emerged many civilian academics and industrial researchers, such as Henry Kissinger and Herman Kahn, who had significant input into the use of military force. It has been argued that the United States has shifted to a state of neo-militarism since the end of the Vietnam War. This form of militarism is distinguished by the reliance on a relatively small number of volunteer fighters, heavy reliance on complex technologies, and the rationalization and expansion of government advertising and recruitment programs designed to promote military service. The direct military budget of the United States for 2008 was $740.8 billion, but total military-related spending on a yearly basis including costs accrued from previous wars is estimated to be $1.3 trillion for the 2015 budget. Arguably, Intelligence gathering can also be considered a war-related expense which would enlarge the portion of the federal budget spent on war further. By some estimates 50% or more of the United States federal budget is war-related. India Rise of militarism in India dates back to the British Raj with the rise of several Indian independence movement organisations such as Indian National Army led by Subhas Chandra Bose. The INA played a crucial role on pressuring the British Raj after it occupied Andaman and Nicobar Islands with the help of Imperial Japan, but the movement lost momentum due to lack of support by Indian National Congress, Battle of Imphal and Bose's sudden death. After India gained independence in 1947, tensions with neighbouring Pakistan over Kashmir dispute also led to rise militarism in India, which also saw a boost during the various events that led to the political integration of India. After the Sino-Indian War in 1962, India dramatically expanded its military prowess, which helped India emerge victorious during the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971. The rise of Kashmiri insurgency and recent events such as the Kargil War against Pakistan assured that the Indian government remained committed to military expansion. In recent years the government has increased the military expenditure across all branches and embarked on a rapid modernization program. Israel's many security difficulties since the establishment of the state have led to a prominence of security in politics and civil society, resulting in many of Israel's top politicians being former high-ranking military officials. Turkey Militarism has a long history in Turkey. It is therefore surprising that there are very few studies in the social sciences and in education on how the militarization of young people has operated. With a few exceptions, social scientists have remained silent when it comes to questioning the military and the way militarism has been instilled in young people, one generation after another. The Ottoman Empire lasted for centuries and always relied on its military might, but militarism was not a part of everyday life. Militarism was only introduced into daily life with the advent of modern institutions, particularly schools, which became part of the state apparatus when the Ottoman Empire was succeeded by a new nation-state, the Republic of Turkey, in 1923. The founders of the Republic were determined to break with the past and modernize the country. There was, however, an inherent contradiction in that their modernist vision was limited by their military roots. The leading reformers were all military men and, in keeping with the military tradition, all believed in the authority and the sacredness of the state. The public also believed in the military. It was the military, after all, who led the nation through the War of Liberation and saved the motherland. See also, police militarization. References. Basevik, Andrew J. The New American Militarism. Oxford, University Press, 2005. http www.ilib.gov.ph/ results.php F equals subject ampersand Q equal militarism plus Philippines, Barr, Ronald J. The Progressive Army, U.S. Army Command and Administration 1870–1914. St. Martin's Press, Incorporated 1998. ISBN 0-312-21467-7. Barzilai, Gad. Wars, Internal Conflicts and Political Order. Albany, State University of New York Press. 1996. Bond, Brian. War and Society in Europe, 1870–1970. McGill Queen's University Press. 1985 ISBN 0-7735-1763-4, Conversi, Daniel 2007 Homogenization, Nationalism and War Unregistered Trademark, Nations and Nationalism, Volume 13, No. 3, 2007, pages 1–24, Ensign, Todd. America's Military Today. The New Press. 2005. ISBN 1-56584-883-7. Fink, Christina. Living Silence, Burma Under Military Rule. White Lotus Press. 2001. ISBN 1-85649-925-1. Freevert, Ute. A Nation in Barracks, Modern Germany, Military Conscription and Civil Society. Berg, 2004. ISBN 1-85973-886-9, Huntington, Samuel P. Soldier and the State, The Theory and Politics of Civil-Military Relations. Cambridge, Belknap Press of Harvard University Press, 1981. Ritter, Gerard. The Sword and the Scepter. The Problem of Militarism in Germany, translated from the German by Heinz Norden, Coral Gables, Florida, University of Miami Press 1969 €73. Shaw, Martin. Post-Military Society, Militarism, Demilitarization and War at the End of the 20th Century. Temple University Press, 1992. Tang, see Comprehensive Notes on World History Hong Kong, 2004, Vagts, Alfred. A History of Militarism. Meridian Books, 1959. Weston, John. Selling Intervention and War. Johns Hopkins University 2005. ISBN 0-8018-8108-0, http, www.indiaseminar.com 611/611 Sunil and Stephen HTM. External links, Military expenditure by total, per capita, and percentage of GDP. Euronationmaster.com